I think we're ready. It's start right on time. We got 13 participants on. Yeah. I don't know. What do I do to get this back? I want to, they had like the mute, unmute button. Ah, there we go. Okay. Oh, I don't, oh, no, hold on. How did you do that? All right. Did you do that? Because I can't seem to figure it out again. Being here with us today, and thanks to all of you online for joining me. Today, we'll be talking about market intelligence, and this is the first real presentation, well, the first presentation that presents research on market intelligence. We've given a number of presentations explaining what market intelligence is and some of our frameworks for how we're going to work, but this is a real opportunity. We have opportunity now to talk about research. And this, Pieter will be, in a few minutes, talking about market intelligence across 3 crops, maize, sorghum, and groundnut. And it's really the accumulation of about 3 years worth of work. Pieter will be presenting today on behalf of a larger team that includes myself, Mercy, Agnes, Harriet. And Pieter's really been instrumental in leading sort of the thinking, the conceptual and methodological thinking in the Market Intelligence Initiative. Most of you know Pieter. He's been with CIMMYT about 6 years, based in Nairobi. He's a marketing and economist. And Pieter, we have 25 minutes, so floor is yours. And afterwards, we'll have a discussion, question and answer session.
Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Sound is working. Okay. Thank you all. Especially thank you for all being online and the massive audience in the room. Of course, online cannot see who is here, so we can joke about that. No, thank you all for joining. This is it's a pleasure to present here. So what I'll talk about today is market intelligence, and I'll talk specifically about bringing new ideas to crop breeding. This work is not just done by myself. Of course, Jason here in Mexico has been working a lot on it, together with Mercy, Agnes, and Harriet in Nairobi. So let's get right into it. And let's start big. So if I can click the slides, that would be great. That's working. See if it starts. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's the problem. Yes. Okay, as I said, let's start big. The impact of the CGR has been known and has been widely known by a lot of people. And what we know about the CGR has been the big successes. Talk about Norman Borlaug, semi-dwarf varieties. IRRI in rice has been a game changer in agriculture. More recently, orange/sweet potato has come in, becoming a really strong and important crop for Africa. But also more recently, we have the example of yellow beans in Tanzania, a new product that's really conquering the market. So new ideas have been extremely important for the CGR. Now, this will stay. If you think about what's coming at us, and if you think about the mega trends identified by the Independent Science for Development Council, we see that things will not become more stable. There's massive challenges coming our way. And if you think about those mega trends, I just start looking into them. I would say that 6 out of the 9 megatrends directly impact CGR breeding programs. If you think about demographic trends, for example, the example of South Asia, where rice was grown under transplanting, but had to go to direct seeding because of rural populations going to urban areas. Changing consumption patterns, market concentration, climate change, environmental degradation, frontier technology and innovation, all these factors will impact breeding. And what market intelligence tries to do is come with the new ideas, with the new big opportunities. So how do we identify those? Because if you think about breeding, there are 2 ways a lot of breeding is done. We have breeding for incremental growth and breeding for step change. If you think about incremental growth, this is what we try to do. We continuously try to increase yield gains. We continuously try to increase disease resistance. Now, if you think about the impact of that, if you think about commercial crops or optimized production system, even a 2% change can have a major impact on outputs, on yields, on farmer benefits. But besides that, there's also the thinking about new traits, the thinking about which will be the next trait or trait package needed that we need to integrate in breeding programs. And if you think about food security crops like the orange/sweet potato, that's a real change. And that's a noticeable change for smallholder production systems. The challenge with incremental grain is seeing it on smallholder fields, seeing that farmers can really see the change. Now, market intelligence about this. If you talk about market intelligence for incremental growth, apologies, we talk about monitoring, we talk about identifying thresholds. When do we have a big enough step to go ahead? We talk about seed systems feedback, because market intelligence can come from within the system. All the variables are here already. Market intelligence for new traits is a different thing. If you talk about step changes, and what do we mean with step changes here is if you think about step changes can come from top down, where a direct response is needed. A very clear example is new diseases, whether it's maize needle necrosis in Africa, whether it's fall armyworm, it's a new line of rust. This needs to be addressed for farmers. These are changes where your product needs to have a new trait integrated. You have to have some new thinking. Abiotic stress, there's a lot of discussion about heat now. We need to address the heat challenge. So these are often also, if you think about adoption, very strong drivers for change. Farmers will pick up a new variety when it has this new protection system. But there can also be more top-down new elements integrated in breeding. Think about nutrition. All the work done on Harvest Plus, the golden rice, orange/sweet potato, that's trying to address a need, but it's not that I wouldn't consider it a direct response being needed. There's other ways to do this. Another way to think about this is technological advancements, gene editing, trait discovery. We have a project now on millet rancidity, and that's an element where something new is coming in. It's more a top-down element coming in. But there can also be new things, new traits, new requirements for farmers coming bottom-up. We can talk about farmer demand, for example. Farmers might want a new different element in their cropping system because they have changed what they do. Industry might also have new requirements. So if you think about all these challenges. Where should breeding invest? What should they prioritize? So what we try to understand is whether impact is on a short or a long term if it's introduced. Whether impact of a new trait is going to be, yes, we want this, and you have massive adoption, or it's about building the product, but also creating demand, also making sure that everybody starts understanding what this product does. So that's, I think, what we try to answer. And how do we do that? We need new thinking about this. We need to see how we can uncover demand for step changes. We need to think about how can we create demand for things that are not, or how to understand demand for things that are not there yet. So that's that's about new methods to provide answers to this. Insights before investments are, we want to know what they will do before investments are made. And we want to think about how to give feedback to breeding programs, give them clear and actionable results that they can use. We want to think about how we can integrate these methods within the CGR and the CGR breeding networks, because if you have to do this work across a lot of different regions, a lot of different areas, we're just a limited number of scientists. We need to work with our partners. And if we develop a method, it has to be intuitive for the end users, for the farmers. So if we want to know, if we understand what they look for in the future, we need to be able to communicate what we have in store, what we can offer them. So in agriculture, this is pretty new. Outside of agriculture, there's a whole research field on this. New product development is, there's whole journals developed about new product development. It's a massive field, and it's mostly focused on automobiles, on fast-moving consumer goods. But there's one, let's say, one sentence that I picked up that's really clear. A thorough understanding of customer needs and wants, the competitive situation, and the nature of the market is an essential component of new product success. This is supported by virtually every study of product success factors. So also in agriculture, this is a thinking we need to start integrating. But I actually looked for the combination of new product development and agriculture. You will not find a single journal of a single article addressing those two. It's a different field. It's not what we have been combining. So the method. Before joining CIMMYT, I was actually 2 years in market research. And one of the things we did the most in market research is concept testing. Now, concept testing is a practice of presenting a client with an idea or a concept early in the planning cycle before investing resources for development. So what you basically do is you present an idea, and then you start asking, hey, as a consumer, as a business, do you think this idea is useful? It's a very simple practice. And you can do this in different ways. So you can visualize your idea, make a prototype. So this is a prototype I found of one of the first tablets. So remember back in the day, for all those people above, I don't know which age anymore, but computers were a screen and a keyboard. And then all of a sudden somebody made a laptop. Crazy. And then somebody said, what if we make the laptop flat and you can actually type on it and there might be a pen? So, but this was a new idea. First tablets that came out, we were all like looking like, where's the keyboards? Like, what's crazy here? So this was a prototype of a new idea. You can develop scale models. So often when they put a new building in a city, a new huge building, they'll develop a scale model, invite the community to come and watch at it. That's a concept. You can produce food on small amounts, test it with some consumers, but you can also just explain the product. Now, the question or what we try to do is translate this to agriculture. And we started making concepts. And there's 3 basic elements to a concept. Your product tries to address a tension, a problem. Then your product has a unique benefit that addresses that tension. And then you say why that product is good to do that. That's how you can explain a concept, just to have you thinking about it. And here I have an example. For example, we presented farmers with a product about drought avoidance. In some areas, it's very popular to have early maturities. In other areas, it's not. So we talked about a product that you say, if you're concerned about the rains, drought, this product is suitable for early harvesting. So your relevant insight and your benefit of your product. Very simple way, but you can use a lot of different, so this was a very simple example, but we also have much more complicated concepts. And then you add the reason to believe why would this concept actually be useful, and why, what does it do, but also that there can be downsides to this product. So this is how we describe the concept. Now, a very interesting part of concept testing is ideation. From where do you get your concept ideas? And I come from many places. So first of all, we go talk to farmers. So we did all this work. We went to talk to farmers. You know, we want to know from farmers what they're doing, what they need, why are they growing products, so or seeds. So that's what you want to understand from them. We also work closely together with product design teams. Now, product design teams are set up per country, per crop, to have a meeting or to have a discussion about what market segments are for that crop in a certain country, what are the products needed for that country to get, and those product design team meetings are different members are there from private sector, public sector, farmer representatives. And as market intelligence, it's great to hear what they're looking for and also to see where their questions are, because they also have questions, like they also don't know things about their own country. With concept testing, you can then start figuring out the answers. Seed companies. I have a very particular seed company here. I'm presenting a very particular seed company owner, because he basically also gave me the idea of concept testing. He said, look, in our country, they're actually everything suited for intermediate maturity products, but now my competitor is coming in with early maturity products, and I'm losing my farmers. Like, what should I do? Should I also go for early, or should I try to convince farmers that they actually should grow intermediate maturity products? So, and then we said, oh, we can test this with a concept. And then a lot of ideas about that we get are coming from researchers, from meetings, from participating in AGG meet. This is a picture of the AGG meeting we recently had. By talking to others, you can get a lot of ideas. And then also trade discovery. Your ideas can come from the gene banks, from what is out there, what's basically anywhere. But then if you get all these ideas, then you can start playing with them. But the goal is to design balanced concepts that are understandable for farmers, and I think very important, are relevant for breeding, that breeders can actually find solutions about this. I'm not saying the solutions are easy, but we somehow think these solutions will be feasible. What we try to do is try to understand where the needs are. It's up then to the other teams to figure out what the right product will be. So that's the ideation process. And just to give an example of sorghum, we are not going light over this. So this was the sorghum, let's say, ideation process. So we started with stakeholder meetings in Tanzania. So this is the work done by Mercy, who's based in Nairobi. We started with stakeholder meetings in Tanzania with IRRI. So we went to farmers, to traders, to seed producers. Then we attended the product design team meeting about sorghum in Tanzania. We had our first draft of the concepts. We had an internal team review. We had inputs from breeding and seed systems teams. Second review, second concept. Another internal review went to the third. A second breeding team review and a IRRI review, and then we got to the finalized concepts. This was a process of 3 months to get exactly the right description for different ideas. And after concept, after the ideation process, you get to the validation. Oh, sorry. Some react a bit slow. We get to the validation process. So we designed 8 or 9 concepts. We wrote them out, what they are. And then we said, look, we can read to a farmer an ID, but we went a step further. We actually went to make videos of those concepts. So instead of giving farmers an ID, we have the story of an agro dealer basically explaining a new product to a farmer. And if you're interested, and it's always difficult to show in presentations, but we also have these videos. So if you're interested, I can perfectly share an example of how we did that. Then a farmer saw 3 of those concepts. Now, as you can see here, we had 8 concepts in total, but we only gave a farmer 3 concepts, just like the tricot approach in on-farm testing. So we got this idea from Jacob Kawe and the team to think about how can we only present 3 concepts, work with incomplete randomized blocks, not to overwhelm farmers. So they got 3 concepts, very simple, and they just needed to rank them. Which would they pick, or which would they be more likely to pick up if they were confronted with them? The nice thing is you get results instantly. So no 2 years of data analysis or so. you have your results. They're all automatic. This is all automized. You basically get your results right after the fieldwork of which concepts come through most. And then the last step is, of course, giving that information back to breeding programs, back to the product design teams, and that's the validation process. We started this work in end of 2021, still in end of the COVID period, which made fieldwork quite a challenge, and even getting back to your own country quite a challenge. So we started in 2021, 2022 in Uganda and Kenya with this fieldwork. We had a sample of 1,200 farmers per country. Now remember, it's an incomplete block. So if you evaluate a concept, here with 1,200 farmers, we had around 400 to 450 evaluations per concept. Then we went to do this in groundnut in 2023, where we worked in Tanzania, had a sample of 2,200. Why this big for groundnut? Because groundnut in Tanzania is very regionally different. There's 4 groundnut corridors in the country. Tanzania is a huge country. So we did the concept testing in each of the 4 areas to see the differences. Then we have sorghum, where we also did in 2023, Tanzania, with also 1,100 farmers. So what I'll do next is, and we have a limited amount of time here, of course, I'll show the results quickly for the 3 concepts. But now what's more interesting, or what I did for this presentation, is actually put those results together and look for the trends across the results across the 3 crops. So just to give you the results for maize. Yes, here they come. So we had for maize 8 concepts designed. And what you see here on the right of your screen is the score. So let's say the scores A were the highest, farmers were most likely to pick those concepts. If you go further down the road, the E, it would be the less likely concept to be picked up. What we did is divide them in tiers, like tier 1 is like your most likely concepts, tier 2, second, the B's and the C's here, and then we have tier 3, the concepts that are not interesting to farmers. So for maize, we had concepts about resilience, basically what the most of the breeding program focuses on: drought, stress resistance, fertile nitrogen efficiency. Then we had a concept about drought avoidance and early maturity. We had a food and fodder concept, home use, a green maize, like maize suited for selling on the roadside to not as a snack. We had a concept around intercropping, maize optimally for intercropping, and a family nutrition concept. This is around vitamin A, orange maize. And what we see here are the results. I'll come back to those. Secondly, for groundnut was a different story. For groundnut, we were working with the breeding program, and as IRRI had designed the market segments for groundnut, we hadn't had a good idea of what's now really important. So for groundnut, we basically started making a lot of concepts around what could be most interesting for farmers. And one of the big questions was, for example, high oil. A groundnut produced for high oil, for oil processing, would that be interesting? Because oil production is a market segment, or was a market segment with IRRI. We were questioning, is that a market segment we have to address now, or is this something for the future? So again, made a lot of concepts, some overlapping around drought resistance, intercropping. We had a concept around high nutrition. We had a concept around drought escape, home cooking, and so forth. Sorghum was different. In sorghum, what we see is we have a market segment in sorghum trying to address a whole lot of end users. The end use in sorghum, so the current market segment in sorghum tries to address food as well as feed, as well as fodder, as well as brewing. So they try to integrate traits for all of these. What we try to do in sorghum is say, which of those is actually most interesting? If you're a breeding program, what should you be prioritizing? Is the food aspect of sorghum the most important, or should you actually care that it's also good for feed or for brewing? So we had concepts around food for family, really designed for high taste, designed for food, nutrition, high flour conversion. Then we had a feed and foods concept. We had a grain for beer concept, one on forage, where you just don't even talk about the grain, you just use focus on the rest. We had a food and fodder, different than feed and food, because fodder is then the leaves and that can be given as livestock. We had an intercropping concept, and we also had a high and basically a hybrid concept where it's really focused on high yield but that's basically it. You just get a high yield, but we don't care about anything else, and you have a higher cost of buying the seed. So these were the concepts presented there. So this is the overview of the results. These were the tier 1 concepts. In maize and in groundnut, we had perfect overlap. What farmers found most important was stress tolerance, early maturity, and then our surprise, intercropping. We found that if we talked about the concept for intercropping, something that was suited to do this, and you could say all maize or groundnut is suited for intercropping, but if you think about maybe we can do some more testing or make sure that this is well tested, or think about traits for intercropping. This came out as a tier 1 trait. For sorghum, the high yields came out strong. So that's one of the big findings for sorghum, but also their intercropping came out. Tier 2, these we would consider concepts where that scored not as good as tier 1, but still had a pretty good score. Here we had vitamin A maize, home use food and fodder. Here we had low labor and nutrition, and here again, food and fodder, feed and food came out. Tier 3, interesting, for example, here oil production came out. That was not of interest to the farmers. And also one of the big questions for groundnut is, should you care about the leaf? Should you care about using part of it for animal production? Dual purpose also didn't came out important in Tanzania. So what are our insights? Tier 1 concept, we would consider if you put this on the market, ready to go. There will be demand for them. There is, and that's what we already know, high demand for early maturing seed products. Secondly, there was interest for cropping system diversity. And I think this is, I would say this really as a plea for engagement between market intelligence, breeding, and agronomy. Much more collaboration on that to see what we can do here. Commercial sorghum, and what we also saw is that there's a tier 1 concept around commercial sorghum markets in Tanzania. And this is something we also saw when we went there. There was so much demand for sorghum, because of south-to-south trade. A lot of Sudan, a lot of sorghum in Tanzania now goes to Sudan, so farmers actually get a good price for this, and this we saw also in our concept testing. The second tier concept is where we need to think about demand creation. And for example, vitamin A maize, I think, is a really good example. Besides the breeding for this product, we really need to think about what can we do to support that product to make sure it gets in the hands of farmers. Promotion, thinking about it to breeding programs. I mean, there might be a lot of options, but what we say is if you breed for it and you just put it in the market, it's not sure that you get a direct pickup, because there might be other things more important for farmers. And the tier 3 concepts, we're not saying that these are not important, but what we are saying is the demand will not come from farmers. You will need an external pull to drive this. For example, what we see now is, or what we're looking into now is peanut butter industry in Tanzania, which is really growing. And there might be an external pull for groundnut for peanut butter. But without that external pull, you could consider something like that a future market segment. So for example, groundnuts for oil production in Tanzania, actually for industrial oil production was not that important. Okay, where to go? Sorry, just some outcome stories also of concept testing. Thinking back about maize, where we started, should a company now grow early maturity, or should he also put an early maturity product on the market, which I mentioned, or should he try to convince farmers that they have to go for intermediate maturity? Based on their own, like say, work, their own interactions, but also based on our results, they said, yep, we have to go for early. So now, this season, this is the first season he put an early maturity seed product in Uganda on the market. And it's the first local early maturity product. For groundnut, we've been working with the breeding teams, and we identified that biomass is not prioritized in the TPP. And let me repeat here for East Africa. We also went to Nigeria. In Nigeria, biomass is extremely important because it's also sold there. So this is also, we have to think about where this is regionally relevant. We cannot start making projections for all other areas. For sorghum, hopefully we see some outcomes coming soon. And this is where I want to end with. What are the opportunities of concept testing? What we really want to do is work with breeding seed systems and agronomy programs to find the new opportunities, and also with trade discovery. This is a tool you can use for new funding. We can, if you have a hunch, if you say, look, this is where we need to go, come talk to us, because this is something where we can work together to say, hey, we can make data on this, and we can go together to funders to say, this is something we need to focus on. This is not to challenge what's happening now. This is not impact assessment. This is about the future and future funding. What we want to work hard now more on is further rollout through our CGR breeding networks. A lot of this was done by us because we wanted to really make, we wanted to build the concept for concept testing. Let's put it like this. We wanted to show that this can work, that this is something useful in agriculture. But now we want to think about how we can work with NARs on this, because this is a fairly simple method. If you know what's needed and you can design the concepts, it's pretty easy to roll them out. So we want to work with partners on doing that. Data, we're working hard on making those publicly available for further analysis with partners. So make sure that everything is shared, that everybody can see what we do. And dreaming big here, I think this should become a standardized method across the one CGR. And we know it's possible. The team of Alliance Biodiversity, CIMMYT, has done this for tricot testing. They have made all tricot testing, Jacob Kawe and others who put a lot of effort in this. They made it a common method for everybody across the CGR, and everybody's picking that up. I think with concept testing, we can achieve the same. I think this is a useful tool from market intelligence thinking to think about step changes. It's not to think about what's already done, it's to think about new ideas. So thank you for listening. I do want to thank all our partners here, definitely. Calro, Tari, Naro, and ABC. And of course, I want to thank the projects this work has been done in. So the Initiative for Market Intelligence, AGG project, and Avisa. Thank you very much.
So we've got a few minutes for some questions. I'll also be monitoring. We've got about 25 people here in the audience. And if I can figure out how to work this screen, I'll be able to figure out who's online and may have a question. I need some help here.
Yes.
Okay, so Itria.
Okay. Thank you so much, Peter, for presentation. I really think it's a very important work and that we should expand. I just had a question regarding the target. So all the work that you've done right now is based in Tanzania, well, in East Africa, let's say, and on sorghum, maize, and groundnut. Are you planning to do, more works on other crops and on other regions? And what's the plan?
Yes, hopefully. But of course, like a lot of research, we need to find money to do this. But yeah, what we really try to do with these first three countries is build out the methods and see that it works. What we now say is we're at the stage of can say we can do this with a lot more crops, with a lot more regions, because the methodology is a fairly simple survey you can roll out. There's quite some questions about design and how you make the concepts and everything, but once you have it, you can roll this out fairly simply. In concept testing in Europe, this is all done through online surveys. So online surveys, like companies would push out products constantly, and they would just do a random online panel and check the concept if it's worth it. So it's something that happens very quickly, very cost efficiently. Huge amount of concepts are being tested, but in agriculture it's of course difficult because if you go to smallholder farmers, you do need to think about your design, your cost of collecting data. But yeah, if we get the funding, if we can build this in the next round, absolutely. This is what I hope to do more.
Thank you, Peter. Very good presentation. I just have a question on the differences between countries and maybe taking into account gender. Have you seen some different trend according to gender?
Thank you so much for that question. So can I see the slides, please? So you just go out. Okay, perfect. Oh no, I lost. Sorry, can you still show the screen, but show slides more in the bottom? Yeah, the presentation. So if you go down in the slide, no full screen. Can you take out the full screen? Okay, so let me go down. Here you go. So if you get rid of the, I don't know if you see the participant thing. Anyway, we analyzed this data further to see gender differences, and we saw some gender differences in maize, but they were not as big that you would say the concepts, the demand for the concepts is completely different. Men and women tend to have similar priorities. Some shifted, and we did more analysis on this. So, and it's difficult to do 3 countries and 3 crops in 25 minutes, but we actually have analysis on this where we look at the gender differences. And for example, what we saw and what you can expect is the home use concept, the concept around good taste, good flour conversion, good storage was scoring higher with women than with men. Now after the watch out, I think early maturity in one of the countries was also more demanded by women than by men. So, but we have data and we did analysis on this, and I put this in the hide slides for if you would ask. So
we have 3 questions online. If we sort of maybe for those in here, just continue to think about your questions. And I think in order in which the hands appeared would be Moti and Harish, and then Tech. So Moti, over to you for your question.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Peter. This is very interesting presentation. The work that you are doing in the 4 countries and across the 3 commodities. My question is very quick. On the validation, how the representative farmers that you have really matters, in the final conclusion that you arrived at. In terms of gender, you have shown us, but also good to cluster as well, and then see what the production objectives of these farmers look like, whether they're just emphasizing on food security or market, and plus what you have obtained in the validation is a stated demand. The effective demand is coming when the seed purchase is happening in the field. So you have shown us, the seed companies have started producing early maturing maize in Uganda. Any observation from that side in terms of the uptake of these early maturing varieties in Uganda? Thank you, Peter.
So we just met the seed committee owner a couple of weeks ago in the AGG meeting, and he's looking at his sales now. So it's coming very soon. So I think he said sales are really good. He's now interested in the farmer feedback because it's the first season that this was released. On your point of seed systems, that's absolutely right. Like, it's really important that once you get these products, they're actually picked up and make it to the farmers. What we try to do with this market intelligence work is we try not to care about that too much, because that's a limiting factor about the IDs. What we try to do with this is say which IDs will be picked up if they would be made available. But absolutely, once we know farmers want to pick it up, it has to A, be made available, B, communicated, C, it has to be evaluated. So there's so much more steps that need to happen. Sorry, I'm talking to a speaker. But there are so much more steps that need to happen that are outside of this. This is about getting the new IDs. After that, the full rollout is a huge task, which we even don't touch upon. So that's thanks, Moti.
All right, thanks, Peter. Harish, you're on. Your question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Peter. Very, very always pleasure to listen to you and all the work you've been doing for the 2 commodities I'm personally more interested in, of course, and including maize as well. So one, I have probably 3 questions. I think our focus on the farmer is super critical and obviously understandable, but we know that the commodity moves from the hands of the farmers and it's taken by the various people in the value chain. I think it's not surprising to see that the farmers, in case of groundnut, do not worry so much about the oil percentage, because most of the groundnut we know is home consumed in many of these countries.
Yeah.
So for them, it's actually too much fat is probably not a good idea. in the groundnut. So, but I think if you ask the same question to other value chain actors in those countries who are probably procuring the groundnuts from the farmer, which is probably less than 40%, I think we might get a different answer. So I think we need to think about
Absolutely.
This is very, very good approach. I really like it. I think how do we now take it to the different people and maybe really understand the comprehensive view of the whole value chain. I think that's my one question.
Yeah.
The second one is we need to scale up this. I think you mentioned tricot, and then I think the tricot. I think one thing which I really like the way they have set this up. They have a software which is in place which allows them to collect the data easily, and I think we need to scale this up. Because we got 6 crops in the dryland crops, and we got probably more than at least 10 countries per crop to work with, or at least 6-7 countries per crop to work with. And I personally like to do this in more countries. But now, how do we scale it up? How do we do it in such a way? How do we, for a lack of a better word, how do we reduce it to the practice in such a way that this can be scaled up? And the third question is more specific one. How is the hybrid sorghum you mentioned? I'm trying to remember whether we asked the specific question in our concept about the cost. What cost are they willing to pay if they get a 30% yield increase? I'm not sure. Sorry, I have maybe too many questions, but I don't know if you remember all of them.
Harish, you can ask 20 questions because I think your investment in this when working on sorghum was so much appreciated. I think you really stuck with us to make the concept or the details in the concept. We had so much discussion about this. So absolutely appreciate the questions. Also like the type of questions. So first of all, we talked about, I'm already forgetting.
It was about the farmer perspective.
Yes,
question was on
farming. Absolutely, yeah. So Jason and I had long debates in groundnut if we actually should go through traders and processors. So we had the same discussion as you, the same question as you had asked us here. But what we tried to do, what we at one point made a decision, look, let's make sure we have this in the books for farmers, and then we can think about how to use this method with other partners. But we have the concepts available. We were actually thinking about just bringing those to traders, but then we might have to think about maybe rethinking our concepts again a bit, because they might care about much other things. They might have much other questions, and it needs some rethinking, but 100% on agreement. Like you can do this also with processors, with others. And I think what's also here, we did it in quantitative ways with a large group of farmers. If you work with business to business, concepts can be perfectly analyzed qualitatively. So you can do this on a much smaller scale. And if you get your 20 main stakeholders in a room together and you start talking about these concepts, the findings from that might be as important as the findings from a few thousand farmers. Secondly, rolling this out. I've been thinking about that a lot as well. And how to do this, how you can grow the team. So we did a lot of effort in market intelligence initiative also to show this to others and to hope that others also start doing this. Maybe we didn't explain it as we did now. I think if we present it again, maybe there might be more interest, but we do want to work with the other CGR partners also to do this. And as said, with the NARS. I think the dryland crops is doing really well in putting the NARS very central in all the work they do. You have the networks. It would be great, and I've been presenting this already through occasions where presentations of Chris promoting this with partners. But think about how we roll this out. Think about trainings. Think about all these things, because it's in practice not that difficult. And I mean, the data analysis we do together with the biodiversity team, they already take up data for so many NARS on tricot testing, so they should be able to do this. On the last question, I'll be in Nairobi very soon, and I think Mercy's there. I think we're best to discuss in-house, but now it's the time to discuss this in detail. And I think there was a serious price premium. So yeah, thank you very much, Harish.
All right, so Tech, you're up. Thanks for your question. Tech, I think you're muted. Or yeah, Tech, you're still muted.
I think it's Adafru is not Tech, Jason.
Ah,
Okay. Are you
sorry.
okay? Thank you very much, Peter. Actually, it's a very good presentation and a good advice, actually. But we wanted to be a little bit more advised, actually, to proceed for the breeders, actually, how to make this, how to make ready these varieties. Actually, what I see is in the three crops. Here one is early maturing and something related with climate resilience. And I think still for me, for this is too general for early maturity. Well, it has to be in which market segment actually, because earliness has to be aligned with agroecological issue. The other is how early, and also when you see the physiology is to take to the breeding table, actually, there is a negative correlation between yield and earliness, and how early or this interpreted in the amount of yield loss, like from what is marketed in that specific market segment will be good. Otherwise, breeding for earliness is not very difficult, actually. It is very easy, but it's always in the expense of yield. So how early and how much yield loss can be accumulated? Otherwise, the issue may be a little bit difficult for us to follow your intelligence and change it to a variety, the trace to a variety. Do you have a plan actually to refine these things, to do this type of things? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adefris, and it's a great question. So I also really, and maybe I haven't done this enough, talk about the limitations of concept testing. Concept testing is about pitching new ideas. How far you work them out is how far you want to develop your concept, but you'll always be limited. This is to start which the new pathways can be towards getting your products picked up by farmers. But after this, you would actually need much more work. If after this we all agree that a certain new way is the way to go, I would say there's a whole new layer of work that needs to be added to this. You really have to get a good understanding. If you have the idea of the product you want to make, you really need to think about, okay, what are now all the technical details and what should we think about? This can be done by discussion with experts, but also by getting feedback from other stakeholders. So absolutely agree. Like, we can give you an idea, a direction, a need, but you can also say, if you see that direction is the right direction, start working further with it. It's not like companies will spend almost 20 to 25% of the budgets on getting the ideas and then start developing them. Here we are kind of working on a very small budget to start what are the potential ideas, and then a lot of money, because it's needed for breeding, but a lot of money to develop those. What I would say is, the more we know what we need to produce, the better we will be at producing that product, and maybe more direct. So, but even on that, for example, the early maturity, that was included in the concept. We actually said to farmers, look, your yield will go down. And that was this whole trade-off that the seed company owner was also dealing with. And we're also talking intermediate maturity here. Like, if we go into more specifics, we also need to watch out that we're not talking about highlands here. In highlands, late maturity is king and should stay king, because that's where your big food baskets are. But in the zones where it's more tricky, more complicated, we really need to ask the questions, what are farmers prioritizing? So
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I think that's a good point, that concept testing is the start of the conversation. This is to frame new conversations with breeding teams and agronomy teams. With that, if there's no more burning questions for those of us here in the auditorium, nope. So we'll conclude this. Thanks again to everyone who stayed up late and who's online, and thanks to everyone who came in early here in Mexico. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.